Tertúlia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Sunday, May 30, 2010. The entry is number 1583. It has 3 pages, 43 ologies, and 7 maxima. The theme is first discernment. Subdiscipline is holomaturology. The definition is, the first discernment is the initial evolutionary intelligence, act or attitude in which the interphysical consciousness puts his or her own ego in the background by exalting the interexistentiality to other consciousnesses with no religious or mystical influence. The act of loosening the structure of his own ego. The dynamic interexistence principle. In referenciology, we have 15 items, and we highlight 5 of them. Personal judgment, donation love, ascending self-conscientiality, priority objective, and first action. The sentence. The theatical difference between the knots and the noa, as addressed here, is one of the most significant demonstrations regarding the evolutionary level of the lucid consciousness nowadays in the present situation. Have you untied your own ego's knots? Since when? Questions. Yesterday I have watched that movie Joelma, 23rd floor. After that I entered the internet and made a research on other firing that happened in other buildings. Would you comment on these great firing problems? First of all, fire is a problem of disorganization. It may be one person or maybe of a whole context. For example, there are some buildings, some condominiums that are really well managed or maintained, and there are others that have a lot of negligence, problems with gas, electricity, garbage. It all creates problems. So we have to pay attention and to check if in our buildings there are organization or negligence. All of these fire problems had negligence of some kind. It can be from the individual or from the whole group. It varies a lot. That's when people leave the issues and to see what happens. Lenience is the main problem. About procrastination, what could we observe in this issue? It's all a matter of intelligence. We need to call attention to those people who have intelligence, those who have half of intelligence, and those who have no intelligence at all. There are people that don't think about the immediate future, only about the moment, the present moment. So it's all a matter of procrastination. And it happens because some people fear or they feel, let's say, they feel some discomfort when they analyze what they need to recycle. Those who don't like recycling just procrastinate. They have mental laziness and enters in the process of milling, intraphysical melancholy. You always need to talk about this subject when you talk about those people that procrastinate what they have to do. In a general way, we need to say this. internet can show you dozens of cases of procrastination. One of the worst things in Brazil regarding procrastination is from the law administration. The legislators analyze the criminal processes, the demands, and they think there is a lot of material. Why don't they put more people to take care of this, or why don't they diminish the paperwork? Anyway, the legislators have responsibility on this. And they even like this word, procrastination. First of all, it's their own problem, and it's very serious for us to think about. And if you're going to study procrastination, it's good for you to check the legislation program. And in Brazil, administration after administration, new generations come and of legislators, and everything is still the same. Everything takes a long time to happen, but we haven't seen any benefits in any tentative reformulation. Would catastrophic dreams be a memory of previous lives, or next, or our next lives? No, it's not just a matter of remembering. Think about what you have gone through when you were in the very old eras. These bad things like fire problems, storms, and volcanoes are really fixed in your memory, in your holomemory. But the ongoing dream is related to something that has marked your memory in a way that you can't just erase it, and it is irrationally or emotionally oriented, based, and you try to clear it, you try to interpret. It's all part of the business. Almost everybody has these kinds of dreams, but the influence varies a lot. I have to deal with someone very toxic. I keep my vibrational state to protect myself. I feel it's working. Every time that simulation happens, something bad happens. Am I able to assimilate nothing from this person? Yes. We should work in a fire, wearing a fireman clothes, with special outfits. And we can use this kind of outfits to enter the water and oxygen. The same thing, or the same comparison can be made when you enter in contact with other people. It's a self-defense outfit. Let's say fire break outfit. All depends on you. You can make a self-encapsulation in a way that you go anywhere and you are not disturbed. It happens to me. I use encapsulation whenever I need. I enter vibrational state, prepare myself, and stand with my energetic presence. And I don't let other energies enter. What could enter? The exanthocene. I don't buy that. Everybody should make experiments in this sense. That's how we are going to prevent the barathosphere from entering our vicinity. And when we enter the barathosphere, we won't assimilate that environment. There are people that are completely autist. There are some absent ones, and there are also those who are always daydreaming. They go through the places and don't even realize what they are living. There are people that go through life, throughout a life, and don't realize they have lived. So we should ponder.
Agora, gente, sobre o processo do primeiro discernimento...
About the first discernment, can you understand this entry? What the base is? I'm talking about interassistentiality, the conscious interassistentiality, with no influence of dogma or religion, mystification. The person gets to its own conclusion, oriented merely by its rationality, aiming evolution. That's the first discernment. This discernment shows hyper-acuity, holomaturity. It shows manifestation excellence. It shows the mega-focus identification. It shows the value of the proexis regarding the person's life. This is the first discernment. You will never see this anywhere. I have looked for it. I have found nothing, but it's the perfect expression regarding maturity. The first discernment is what comes before everything else. When you act like that, nobody can talk ill against you or say that you are egocentric, you are a child, you are out of reality, you are centered. In a way that interassistentiality from this person is very well settled and understood. I don't see how you can make extraphysical clinic without understanding the basic principles of first discernment. So this could settle the extraphysical clinic. Without this clinic, it's very difficult to be intrusion-free with a high level of lucidity. And let's say with a prolific or useful, productive, harmonic life.
É impraticável mesmo para esse ser desperto sair disso para chegar na semiconsciência.
For this person to live the intrusion-free and enter conscientiality of the level of free consciousness without the first discernment is impossible. There are many people asking us here, what are the clauses we should enter the CPC? Discernment is the main one. We avoid talking about it all the time because we always cause somebody's attention, but sooner or later people will understand, will figure it out. This entry is very thin on purpose for you to think about what you need That's why I read here the principle, the principology. The disbelief principle really fits this entry. If you have some difficulties doing your own things, you have difficulties watching other people, thinking about other people, like intercomprehension and benign thoughts is very difficult. But the first discernment shows all these issues. This expression, I bet none of you have heard this expression. I chose this on purpose to call your attention to the problem. I look for these themes because I don't want to talk about popular expressions. We are dealing with a science. If it's a science, we can speak, we can use another record. For example, today I started taking notes of some names to write other entries. So, associationism, systematicity. Pay attention to this expression. Association. Associationism, if you want. But systematicity of the associationism is for you to think about what is the systematization of the great association, of the general mega association. These are the expressions we use here. I'm talking to you because you are writing your books, and we must think about this. It's useless to speak a very common language, and fortunately we already have a big dictionary from the Portuguese language that recognizes our neologisms. And it's not easy to create neologisms. We should have a very generalized intelligence in all kinds, all knowledge areas. What do you want to say? Waldo, page 16, effectology, the first effect. Could you amplify this idea? The holomaturity effect manifested by the holosoma. It means when you use all your manifestations or your whole holosoma simultaneously, and everything headed to evolution. When you use a parapsychism in a bigger assistance, you need to use your whole holosoma. You need to check someone else's blocks in the brain. This kind of assimilation is very serious. The voltaic arc that you establish to eliminate this block is very serious. It's not only an ergosoma, it's your mental soma, your will, your intention, and how you react before this person by the emotional point of view. So it reaches psychosoma. At the end, how do you live all this process? Are you okay? Have you made a good disassimilation? You defend your holosoma. That's the effect of the holomaturity manifested through the holosoma. I was right about the projectiology when I started studying it before conscienciology, due to the objective body that is the psychosoma. If you start carrying out some researches and some projections, you will fixate your reality of the means of manifestation. If you do this, you will never think only about your body, your material body. You never think like the materialists that think they are their own bodies. So you enter a new condition. You manifest anything you will manifest. You think about all other vehicles. Okay, it doesn't affect my body, but it affects other bodies. So it's a holosomatic issue. Valdo, what would be the main prerequisite for the person to get a maturity to this first discernment? First, you should have reflection. Without reflection, how can you think about discernment? You have only good intention, but it's too rookie condition. You're just crawling toward discernment. But Valdo, this person should have a level, let's say, evolutionary level, like the intermissivist. I think it's very difficult for you to understand these simple words from this entry without being intermissivist, without cosmetics, especially cosmetics, with no life philosophy. You never understand if you don't have all this. People think we are naive, it's out of reality, it's not useful. I have debated this subject throughout my life in these last decades. Yeah, we can do this, but do you think that the intermissivists can understand this? Yes, the intermissivists can understand due to the intermissive course. You have had many shames during your intermissive course. I mean, you were ashamed because of your problems, and you went through all this in the intermissive course. I think that most of you that made the intermissive course are here for this. And this is a subtle theme, and it's very simple, apparently simple, and it's deeply subtle. So it's terrific.
It's very difficult. It's subtle but very complex. And you can see that most of the things I've brought here are just like that. And it's not for those who I call the stupid, the dumb, and the idiot, the religious fanatics, those who are blindfold, those who suffer from brainwashing, those who are suffering from existential robotization. This is very complex for complex people on purpose. That's what I want to call the attention to. Interassistentiology is a process of higher education. It's an advanced discipline. It's something sophisticated. So according to what you said, Professor, this is the basis for the assistance. Discernment is the basis for that. Yeah, because if the person reflects, it's okay, but if the person wanders away, if the person daydreams, the person will not get the point I'm talking about here. If the person says, oh, I've got it all, I will say, no, you haven't. You're still on the surface, because it's deeper and more serious than we think. That's why I read that this is the principle of the interassistential evolutionary dynamics. That's the basis of all the process. Professor, you've just mentioned that in order to create neologisms, we gotta have a multifaceted intelligence. I would like you to elaborate on that. So, what kind of intelligences would be involved in it? Well, the first thing is you have to create a neologism, and it will reach at least one domain of knowledge, but in order to work with that domain and create a new idea, it will surely approaches the other domains of knowledge. You know what contiguity means in Portuguese and in other languages. You can just bring them up without any systematicity. You will see that it will resonate everywhere, just like when you throw a stone in a lake. There are waves everywhere, so that's why it's multifaceted. You cannot create an idea within an evolutionary domain, let's say, without checking out for the repercussions of that idea in the surrounding knowledge area. So the first thing is you have to analyze, let's suppose that this is a very simple idea, but it doesn't matter, because first and foremost you have to see the repercussions of it. So, truth be told, we have to ponder. It's extremely serious in terms of scope. It's a cosmovisionology. That would be the desirable, the ideal condition. And if you ask me, what do I need? I will tell you, you gotta get out of your monovision and acquire a cosmovision in order to be able to see a new entry, to conceive a new idea. That's what I call the verpon, the leading edge relative truth. That's what will lead you to neology. Let's reason with me, Carla. Who comes first here is the idea, the original neo-construct. It comes before the neologism. When you see, you have a new idea, it's hot in your hands, just like hot potatoes, and you don't have the stuffings, and you gotta find something else to really be able to present that new content. So that's where neologisms come in. So that's a consequence. It's the profits of your main idea. It's the interest. So, can you see the reach, the scope of such reasoning? Professor, if we set up a workshop so that we can teach people to work with neologisms, what kind of attributes do you think we're going to be working with? Well, the first thing is to make people think by themselves. A stupid question that you could pose is, okay, today is May 30, and you just have one more day to end the month. What's the new idea you have come up with this month? And the person will say, no, I haven't any, and the last month, last decade, last year, and so on, and you go on, and you will be able to drive the person into a corner to see what kind of originality the person has to show. We are writing here, there are 39 authors, and we want to expand it to 100 authors over the course of time. So it's just, I don't know how long it's going to take, because a millennium is nothing, but let's try to understand it. These people need to reason by themselves. They have to look for the new idea. The originality is within the main goal. It's blinking at the person. It's challenging the person. Original idea, original idea, original idea. Professor, what's the trait hampering the person from having the new idea? Well, I've talked about that a lot here. It's what we call a priori osmosis. The person has a preconceived idea that freezes the person, and as Locke says, what blocks the person is the condition of being in the countryside, in the interior of the land, interiorosis as we call it. The person is neophobic, the person is afraid of new conditions, situations, and ideas. Thus, any people who would like to deal with neologisms has to work with neophilia, new ideas, new verbal, new constructs to start with. So it's the neo-cognition, neo-knowledge. Everything turns out to be the same. Does it make sense to you? And if a person shows up here and says, but see, it's very theoretical and so on, and you say, hey, what about my eye? And what about your parents' eyes? And you gotta ask the person that. So because reason, what about the repercussions on your life? What do you need to leave behind your secular, your centennial mismaxis? So the neologism brings the person to the reflection upon new ideas. So for instance, a person that has gone against the neologism, the person has to go against the neologism if it's ill-constructed. But if the person criticizes only because it's a neologism, a new word for a new concept, the person is in a very bad situation. The person could suffer an intellectual lynch, which would bring bad consequences. We're going to bring the person down with that. And another thing is, you have to say, to deal with neologism is one of the main activities within the intellectual domain. It's one of the main points for those who consider it, let's say, the pinnacle of knowledge. It's within the mental somatic process. So the neologism is within the mental somatic process because it's the invention, the originality. Either the person doesn't create or doesn't expose, so the person has to face that. Merely the act of going for the neologism is already a demonstration, which is not easy, by the way. But what happens is that everybody want to have very simple things. They want to have all the things shattered into small pieces to swallow, and they don't want to have troubles with that. They just want to chew it and swallow it up. And the person will ruminate what you've given to them, just like a call, and the person will say, I'm not in that level, because if they don't create by themselves, they won't understand the idea. And there are groups and groups of people like that in the best families, in the best social levels, and so on. As well as in the academia, by the way. Professor, taking advantage of all your encouraging words, I would like to make this open invitation to those who would like to participate in our neologism workshop in Hollow Cycle. We are producing Neologisms Dictionary on Waldo's works. Well, yeah, I think it's one of the highlights of my work, even though it serves a secondary relevance, but it's important to be taken into consideration. That's why Sacconi put that into his dictionary, because he's intelligent. He paid attention to that. He's one of the greatest lexicographers in Brazil, and he was able to go beyond the appearances. He was able to see some things, and in his dictionary, you will find many other neologism, so his personal library must be very rich, and now I can understand why he's also always been combated, because he is a man who renews things. So he is, we could say, a revolutionary, a rebel, and his dictionary shows that up. By the foreword, we can see that it's very irreproachable. It's very difficult to go against his words in his dictionaries forward when he talks about the words, dictionaries, and all the indications and all the illustrations, the ideas he has laid down.
Inclusive ele diz, né, que prefere.
Yeah, Professor, and by the way, he says that he prefers to bring neologisms and leave the archaic words behind. Yes, he's renewing the language, and it's terrible, people. You have to pay attention to that, because I got acquainted with a person that by then had been teaching English for over 14 years, and with the process of linguistics in itself. And this person started working with me. 2 weeks later, the person said, I don't want to come back here. I mean, I don't want to work with Portuguese anymore, because that's what Portuguese is. That's what you do with your language. It's Portuguese. Portuguese is the work you have with the language. You write the language you speak. And this person was a problem, because I wanted the person to expand her knowledge, to be a friend of mine. The person just gave up on the work. The person was able to see the scope by means of my style, and the person wanted to change to a better style, of course, and I couldn't go against that, because the person started dealing with parapsychology and so on to work with assistants, and I couldn't go against the person.
E o seu dicionário de neologismos, né? Esse que
estamos. And Professor, your neologism dictionary, the one we're producing in the whole cycle, it has come up to 6,000 neologisms. And, well, but it would be very good for the work to write down just the more simple ones, the very complex, with compound phrases. These are more difficult. Sometimes people won't understand them, and sometimes they just want to have a single word. So maybe the desirable would be just to write down the individual, the one word phrase, and maybe with the derivations, but it couldn't be an entry in itself. You write down the main word as the entry, and maybe the compound phrases within that entry. So didactically, if I were to write that work, I would do like that. And the unitary ones, I would like to see how many they will amount to. And there will be a lot, and there are more to come. There are more to come, because I've been always producing them. But before finishing this book, I would like to give you the big words, because some of them you haven't really grasped yet. Some of them are very difficult to grasp, and they wander away. But I have some very good ones which will be enlisted in the encyclopedia. And mine are based on syllables, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 syllables. So there are up to 5 different kinds of big words, and some of them are in some categories, they are very large. But, you know, 10 syllables, there are more words. 15, there are less, fewer words. There are words with 14 syllables already, and they're very functional. Of course, that by then I will submit it to you to catch all the experts we have here. All of you who work and have worked with it. Most of you are women, my past people. Most of you have been men in past lives, and some even lexicographers. Male lexicographers, by the way, and we're going to see that better when time comes. And within the mini dictionaries I have there, the 40 different mini dictionaries I have there, I gotta see what I'm gonna include in the encyclopedia. For example, in the letter M, I don't know if I have to put everything I have, and I will leave that up to the end after some years. But your dictionaries matter a lot. But I would like to remind a thing. Let's say that you publish that tomorrow or next year or so. And what happens? I will go on producing neologisms. So, maybe it will be outdated quite fast. So, you gotta write at the end, to be continued. Yes, Professor, that's the process of creating neologism that makes you a free thinker, a scientist with free expression. Yes, I am a creative bibliographical researcher. That's what they called me. Yeah, he's a great bibliographical researcher. That's the first swear. They will swear at you saying, oh, you're a great researcher, a bibliographical researcher. So, Waldo, I would like you to elaborate on this role of free thinking, because a person got to be free to think, and by doing that, be able to create their poems and leading their truths. No, that's not the most serious. The most serious condition is the self-security, the self-confidence. Because the person, quite recently, I was asked, what would be the strong trait I would have to understand very well the language and create new words? And I told the person, vibrational state, and I couldn't say otherwise. And why the vibrational state? Because in the vibrational state, the person will be shielded, will enhance his process, the holophosine, will amplify self-sufficiency, will be able to stand to his ground, because without that, no way out. If the person is too insecure or blindfold, it gets a bit difficult. So I would like you to elaborate on this assistential work you undertake with the neologism, which is the one I consider to be the most important, because you attract more intermissivists and so on. No, neologism is not the most important. The most important is what I know because of enumerator, my helper. It's the problem of the priority of the expressed idea. So, for example, when I say the principle of disbelief, it creates lots of problems.
It's worse than neologism, but it's a compound phrase, but it's terrific. Why? Because of the repercussions, the consequences it has. Do you understand? The prolific process of this idea. But of course, whenever you do this, you need to characterize, you need to define, identify with details. You need to go with the fine tooth comb. You need to expose all these ideas. When I say principle of disbelief, you leave behind all the cognition, everything your mother told you, your parents, your professors, interesting people, you see by yourself. Forget everything. Restart like a tabula rasa. Zero your thoughts. You have your own experiences. Go to your own conclusions. This expression, this compound phrase, disbelief principle, is terrific. It's obvious. It's natural. But Waldo, in verbonology, there is also a timing and a sense of opportunity, specific in that moment, the right moment. Yeah, when we started working in the Institute of Projectology, I used to say that I was older than those volunteers, and my mere presence has an importance. I was always kidding with them. See my head. I have no more hair. I'm bald. And this is serious. And those of you who have this 4 locks, you need to lose a little hair, okay? And black hair 4 lock, which is even more important. It's not white hair. I'm just kidding, okay? But you need to be acknowledged, right? So there are several steps, right, Waldo? The freedom of thoughts, the intelligence, but there is also an contrary process, Malu. Or if you want to say the same thing I always say here, antagonism, like a paradox. If you don't start early, you will never have a cosmovision. Do you understand? One needs to have a lot of knowledge. I understand the neologism. I started noticing the neologism when I was very young. I was 6. And I used to read the comics. And I asked my mother about that, and she used to laugh a lot. She said, "Oh, my son, you are asking me, but you are the one who is reading all these comics." And I wanted to know what those names came from. There are thousands of superheroes, you know, and lately they have created more. But there's not that kind of creativity, and the first generation of superheroes were outstanding. And these ones are very inferior in quality. Those expressions, Waldo, from the superheroes, and nobody used to say that, like crash, fall, boom. All that was very serious. So let's say a person that has intellectuality but jumped these steps won't reach the cosmovision. Professor Vicente de Pérez was the first one to talk about the neologism when I was young. Think about, how can I create these new words? And the professor said, you want too much, you need to think about, you need to know many other things, to see the definition of the words. In his class was the first time I knew about neologism. He taught me about simultaneous languages. And I saw the obituary when he died. The whole city was very upset. Those obituaries were published in the newspaper, and my sister was showing me it. It's impressive what they have written. It's like a literature masterpiece. But, and by these things, we see how important that man was to that community. And he helped all that people by his intelligence and his influence in the city hall. He used to have talks with the judges due to his knowledge regarding the languages, different languages. And in that obituary, they mentioned all these intelligence. And he was very strict personality. He was a real teacher. He pushed on us, you know, and he moved on. That helped him a lot. And that's when I had all these ideas, these first ideas on neologism. I have read many books, but some books are superficial about this process. Some of them are very theoretical, show only the common pattern. But to create an idea comes first, and then you make the form of the word. But to come to this point, you need to understand everything. So you need to start early. That's why I call the paradox. You need to carry both content and form together. In terms of communication, it's very intelligent. Question: what could you talk about? How could we talk about other planet lives? Taking the example of the planet called Mars, would it be similar to the Earth in terms of climate? Well, the universality of the inhabited world, it's terms of intraphysical life. It's not a matter of extraphysical, okay? They have seen there are no there is no organic life in Mars, but there may be some other kinds of micro-organic life. The moon itself, you know, has a lot of water, and when you send an space station, you can spend some time, some years in the moon, making research. According to the Hermetism principle, what is on the top is the same as what is on the bottom, and vice versa. In Camaleon book, this principle is told to be what allows us to see the function of some other worlds. Is there really such correspondence? Yes, but there is a principle that is superior to all this. The consciousness is the consciential principle of everything. That, I mean, you, myself, consciousness only evolves by helping other people. This is superior to all this. This is the first discernment. These things of you feeling the energies in the email, how does it work? How about if I copy the question from another person? It doesn't work copying the energy, the question. What matters is your energy. When we plug in like a microwave here and we have the perception of those who are asking these questions, we see the intention of who is asking this. People ask me some questions and I answer a completely different answer. And I have received some letter telling me that I went to the right point. The person was trying to deceive me, but I understood what was his intention. So think about your consciential principle. This is the main one. Everything else is a matter of initiation. For the last days, I have felt my frontal chakra. What can it be? I have been practicing Penta for almost a month, but before that, I used to exteriorize energies, and I have read all the Penta manual, the handbook. I intend to read it again. You must, I think you have your helpers now improving your frontal chakra process. So you probably come to a point when you feel like your frontal chakra were an elephant trunk, living, reaching other places, and you feel like you could grab things with your own hands. Until getting to this condition, you feel like your head is pumping, and you think you have sinusitis. You make some x-rays, and you see the frontal part of your face, and there will be no problems. It's just a matter of energies. And you can feel it pulsate, like your next step will be throbbing. Can you make a parallel between the trinomial motivation, work, and leisure, and workaholism? The workaholism is regarding to the primary person. We usually talk about young people who are in a movement or in a change condition, and sometimes you abuse of your own body. But motivation, work, and leisure is for those who have already matured and they have gone through these other conditions. And you have pleasure with your work, which amplifies your motivation. And you won't have any excess. You'll be organized, you have discipline, you have your limits, your adequate sleep period. Whatever you need to eat, you will do it. You won't eat too much or too little, but the right amount to keep your body. But it's just at the end of the line, when you come to a maturity. So motivation, work, and leisure is a main goal for the veteran. I am not a specialist in the subject, but I was thinking about the deaf and blind in the Tertulia. I don't know anybody in this condition, but I have thought about them. I thought about three conditions. Someone in simultaneous translations of American Sign Language, and a doubt when it comes to this. When these ideas comes to our minds, can it be intuition like a helpers, like from the helpers? Well, the media has this kind of instructor that have this kind of possibility. You see, there is that panel there. You need to call the attention to the beautiful ladies here, not only my bald hair, my bald head. In foreign ismology, it's written Megalox interstitial. Wouldn't be mega focus. Well, let me see. For epistemology, megalocus of the intentionality. He said interstitiality. He wants to change from megalocus to megafocus. No, but I'm talking about the place. It's not wrong, okay? But we can even put another one here, megafocus, with interstitial. Megafocus. Megafocus. Thank you for your contribution. The spirit of André Luiz addresses the subject of spiritual community. Does it really exist? I don't know. Check it out. Go see for yourself. In the spiritual world, there are many segments of religion. Is this a reality? Well, what you call extraphysical. There are many initiation sects, religions, whatever you think about this, it exists. Even those Satan, evil places, all kinds of communities, and they are all making brainwashing. Do these segments organize in communities like here in the extraphysical? Yes, and they are dominating even more than in the intraphysical life. Because here, when we have a pedophilian person, we just send him to prison, and that's okay. But in the extraphysical, it's very difficult. Well, here on earth, we are studying the intermissive course, and there is no sectarian process. It's universalism. Think about this. I can't practice Penta like I would like to, but I'm having discipline with exteriorization of energies. Can I direct energies to a certain relative who is going through some problems? Or should I just leave energies without focus? Of course, you should focus to a specific person. That's how we help these people. You must think about him. When you think, your energy is already there. It's instantaneous. I have participated in a course here taught by Maria Oliveira. After the energetic exercise, I have felt the frontal chakra, and I felt like a pain in my eyes, and I visualized some purple circle in front of me. When I talked about this experience, the teacher told me it was like a clairvoyance, but I have never had this kind of experience. He said I have also some facility to leave my body, but I fear this kind of experience. At night I have some intrusion. What can I do to overcome this process? You have three things to be done: vibrational state, vibrational state, and vibrational state. Think about it. The myoclonia and neurovegetative system is a matter. Myoclonia is a problem of the consciousness. It's related to your body. Your nervous system works despite your own will. But sometimes there are people who can control. Is it a problem of my own body that I am not able to control? Yes, more or less this condition.
teria alguma relação? Eu me lembrei daquelas regras de ouro que as religiões falam.
This first discernment would be related to the golden rule of some religious precepts, like just you gotta do to others what you would like to be done to yourself. Does it have to do with this first discernment? I don't see any kind of relation, because if the religions had this, they wouldn't be sectarians. I understand, it's just like the principle of disbelief. Because with it, there's no reason for any kind of religions, because it's sectarian.
Sabe dessa regra de ouro?
Não, tem, mas essa regra, isso vem
até na filosofia da China.
Dos primeiros sermões.
It's older than religions. It's just like the Serenissimuses that came here before all that. It comes from the ancient times. In the ancient texts, just like Blavatsky's works, it was already written there. Yes, they call it sometimes the reciprocity ethics. Yes, because it's the interessentiality, conscientiology, interessentiality, but the problem is not that. Just take a better look here. The first discernment, I will read. The first discernment is the initial evolutionary intelligence or act or attitude in which the interphysical consciousness put his own ego in the background by exalting the interessentiality to other consciousnesses with no religious or mystical influence. The person doesn't want to do if he's receiving any kind of help or not. The person just want to help other people because he knows that evolutionarily speaking it's inevitable. It's advanced and it's the only way out, so there's no religion. So it's a process of evolutionology. That's the end of it. There is discernment and not faith. There is no faith, no belief in it. The person decides by himself. There's no need of helpers saying that he's going to help others, because the person takes care of itself by himself, because the person want to concentrate his efforts on helping others, and it's his way. That's the only way to bring down religion. The person is not only working with the consolation task, it's just a means to get to the clarification task. This is first and foremost a clarification task, a clarification-based task. Waldo, concerning what Roberto has said, when religions say that you gotta do to others what you would like to have done to yourself, it's just the same, because that's what happens with the masochist. Look, let's analyze it deeper. Speak up. What do they say, the religious people? You gotta do to others what you want to have done to yourself. It's just a little business. It's a religious little business. You gotta love the others as I have loved you. It's just a business. He's putting his own ego above all the others. That's self-promotion. That's Jesus Christ. It's everything wrong. And Professor, if the person is a masochist and the person likes that, the person will do the same to others because since he likes it. Yeah, because if he had said, let's love everybody else, imparting the best knowledge we have with no consideration of any other domain of knowledge or any other religious purposes, with any other consideration, let's just love and help. But you see, Jesus Christ was very childish in terms of mental soma. It was very poor. And it's not only me who says that. Ernesto Renan has said that too, and they almost killed him. Hannah Arendt also says that, yes, but this Ernesto was from the Catholic religion, and he wrote Vie de Jésus. And he was talking about Jesus Christ, and he wrote that because he analyzed the human personality, and it's a problem, and everybody went at him, jumped at him, but the book is very good for the time it was written. Waldo, in definition, all of us conceive this, theoretically speaking, but that for those who can conceive it, what is lacking in order to apply it? Because it's not only a theoretical understanding, it must be put into practice too. It must be effective, functional, and what lacks? Well, here, what happens is that it's theoretical, and it is from the clarification task. So the first discernment is to pass your discernment on to other people. I am just giving a synthesis, summing up. But the professor here, what you said, I thought of it, but in definition, it only talks about, just to sum up, because I told you that I wrote a macro entry just to make people understand what's the first discernment. It's something good already, because this expression is not common. Have you seen that in any other book? I've been asking this question almost every month. If you've seen expressions like mine in other books, it's just like the other thing I was talking earlier here. When I brought you an expression that you haven't ever seen, it's superior than the neologism in itself. That's the meaning. The acception, what it wants to express. But, Professor, a question, the level of interassistentiality. It seems that it's the first condition. Well, it's up to the person. The person has to see by himself, because if the person is feeble, the help will be very weak, but if the person is strong profile, maybe the assistant could be stronger, and that's how you gotta consider it. But the person has an assistentiality level that will add this first discernment just after a certain level. Well, it's just after a certain discernment that the person will understand the first discernment. The person that has only goodwill and good intention will ever understand this. It's silliness. I am very realistic and straightforward. There's no way to push that condition. But Professor, in terms of practicalities, Arlindo, pay attention. If the person understands this, the first thing that will happen is that the person will diminish most of the conflicts he has. Isn't it true? Just give a thought to it. A minute, Roberto. Think of it. So it comprehends and shapes all the details of the interconsciential universe of a person. It's taken to its foundations, and there are lots of things just like that. When I write something advanced, I can bring it up to 10 pages, but this one is only 3 and it's already very complex. Yes, Professor, because when we can understand this theoretically, it's at least the beginning, but it requires an effective theories. Yeah, see, everything I bring here is not easy to understand. I know. That's why I present it very didactically. That's why I debate it 2 hours daily here. That's the intention. I know it's hard, and you see that I debate things here, not just like they said that I'm nervous or that I am just very anxious. I listened to one, I listened to the other, and when I walked away from here just the other day, this lady asked me, do you take any meds to give these classes? And I told her, well, yes, I take some, but they're not for giving classes. But she asked me, do you take any anxiolytic? And I told her, no, not at all, I cannot. But that's the opposite when they said that I'm nervous. So she came to me to ask if I used to take anxiolytic. And you see, it's a question that I was never asked. Because I think that I said something and I showed my hands that I wasn't trembling, and just like what I do, and maybe she thought that I took any kind of anxiolytic. Maybe I just woke up and walked into the tertuliarium to give the classes. When we had intermissive course and understood the ideas, we came here, recovered all the lucidity, and had the first discernment. It's not like that, but there are people who think just like that. It's not easy, because waldo, it's not an instinctive assistance that will make it. It's to be lucid for what to do. That's just like that guy who said, I took the intermissive course. Pay attention, you gotta respect me. Yeah, I saw it. And it happened in Rio, back in Rio. I saw it in Rio. And he said, do you know who you're talking to? I took the intermissive course. Pay attention. You gotta slow down with me. You gotta respect myself. And I saw that, this little talk in Ipanema. But see, the human nature is complicated. Any joke you've heard in any other domain, in any other field, you can bring it to conscienciology. There will be the right moment to say it. So a clear example in a context at a certain age group. Could you give us an example with yourself or anybody else? Well, no, the thing is here, here's what. That person that used to have lots of properties, and there were several factors. The person lost everything and then recovered afterwards, and up to a point that when the person is 50, the person wonders, well, I've done so many things, I've helped some people in my family, but that was it. There are things that are just with me, and the person thinks about that. And after a while, the person will get in touch with conscienciology and comes up to me. But say, I would like to understand that better, waldo. And the person starts thinking, this person isn't able to listen, to hear about the intermissive course. But then after some days, the person will come up to me again and say, do you think that I have this intermissive course? I heard about that. And I say, well, we gotta look into it, because if you took it after several years, it's terrible. It's better not to have taken it. So I start like that with little jokes, because sometimes it's exactly the person who took the intermissive course, but the person acknowledges it, and the person will come to this first discernment, and from that time on, that point on, the person will be able to help more. And these are the most prepared to write the masterpieces. If they're already in an intellectual domain, they will be the first ones to write books and masterpieces. You can see that I'm giving lots of aspects on the same subject in a very simple way to understand this very subject. The person understands it all of a sudden, but you gotta go slowly, because instead of helping, you could complicate, and if the person could have a heart attack. Professor, another association that I had here is that when you talk about the interprison, victimization, recomposition, the liberation, when the person commits the ego side, the person forgets about himself and thinks about the other, and then polychromality. In that chapter of the 700 experience of conscienciology, you say that the person takes around 700 years to get to this stage. So, in order to have this first discernment, the person has to have come in this wave for quite a long time. Yeah. Otherwise, the person won't understand. There's no way to talk about the superior mathematics to those who are studying arithmetics. So it's for you who took the intermissive course. But see, it's the third time I'm going to repeat that here. It's Apparently simple subject, but it's terrible. It's a hammer down on your head. Yes, Professor. So it works as a watershed to really distinguish between the constellation and the clarification task. Yes, and the worst is the expression that I have come up with. First discernment. First discernment. So the person didn't have any kind of distinction of discernment of reasoning before coming to this condition. It's terrible because think, it's just like, now I'm gonna make it clear the fourth time about the same subject, but I was going to avoid that, but I gotta talk about that to you. So this is the same as swearing at 80% of mankind. 80% of the mankind, you're calling them stupid, idiots, dumbs. It's terrible. I'm just saying that because it's something that I was kind of avoiding to say, but think, isn't it?
Pois é isso que eu estou falando, o primeiro discernimento.
So the first discernment.
Agora você veja, esse povo tudo de religião, esse é o primeiro discernimento.
People from religion, they don't have this first discernment. And we can prove that based on hard evidence, because if the person is religious, is sectarian, no way to have the first discernment. If you say, but Waldo, the person can be a Catholic and help the others the best he can do. But he cannot, because his example is not good, because if the person is Catholic, what kind of clarification can the person give if the person is a Catholic, if the person belongs to a certain sect, if the person is Spiritist or whatever? Roberto, you can understand that, can't you? So this first discernment embraces everything. Waldo, do you remember when I gave the first projectiology class, I went up to your office to tell you that it was the first day and I was understanding things better? Can I call it my first discernment? No, it's not. Well, so it's not yet? No, it's not. And from that time on, many things happened, and so it's not the first discernment yet, Professor. Not even when I understood that. Because when we started debating your syndrome of foreigner, and that's when you were getting started. Just after that, I think that you really had your first discernment. Do you remember that by then there were some misunderstandings, some little things among our teachers? So there were no ambience, no atmosphere to have the first discernment. See, in our people here, we should ask Antonio, where is he? Where is he? He's up there. What's our percentage in his, according to his polls, what's our percentage of those who already understand or experience this? We gotta be pragmatical here, very objective. And from that time on, we have to see that the person has to requalify himself. The person has to establish, consolidate that condition all the time to really establish it.
While we have the big ego, we don't have first discernment yet, right? The ego side is the turning point, and when you have aperismosis, you don't have that yet. Whatever you are defending with your passion, forget it, you won't have first discernment. So about when the conscienciogram aims to target us to this first discernment, right? Yeah, but you can't say this all of a sudden with everybody, because they won't understand the thing. You have to wait, calm down. But Waldo, can't we have the first discernment and come back to a previous level? Oh, my eye, come on. You are going to call your attention.
Little grandmother.
Okay, you say little grandmother, right? That's what I was saying, Waldo. It has to be continuous. You can't just be extrapolation. You can't come back.
Não pode regredir.
You can't move back. By logic, if this is the first discernment, those who haven't reached this, it means that has no discernment at all, right?
Esse é o primeiro.
Of course, because
Todos os outros discernimentos
all
só
of
tem
the other
três vezes.
discernment
São seus discernimento, o seu discernimento
it's just
entre aspas,
experience.
que parece, mas não é.
It seems to be,
É
but
uma
it's
coisa que não é o
not, okay?
essencial ainda.
And it's not essential yet.
It's
It's obvious, but it's very serious that for real, we haven't had
Agora,
discernment
gente,
yet.
isso é
People,
assistência tarística
clarification test,
irretocável. Esse é o primeiro discernimento.
assistance.
Agora aqui, no
Can't
livro
be
Projeciologia, o senhor afirma que já
In
houve
projectology, you have said there were several analyses in labs regarding the ectoplasm. Could you talk about these researches and the involved researchers? Yeah, it's written in those books in Holoteca.
Qual foi a visão da ciência convencional
What was the
sobre isso?
vision
Diz
of
que a observação nessa
conscienciology, the
profundidade poderia
traditional
criar um novo
science?
paradigma em
And
pesquisa
could it
universitária.
reach another paradigm? No, it hasn't created a thing. Science only reaches what matters to them and what gives them money and what leads to Nobel Prize and for them to have subsidies to other researchers and that's all. Would it be a try of recycling of the old paradigm? Yeah, by the expression, of course, but not even parapsychology has shown anything in this matter. They are going in the same way of conventional science. But hope is the last one to fade.
Agora que me desliguei do vale
I have gotten free of the
como ajudar as pessoas que me procuram para serem ajudadas?
How can I help other people who want to be helped? Many come to me talking about intrusion, and I used to tell them to go to the Spiritism Center. But now that I've chosen this new way, how can I help them? There isn't the projection institute here. How can I help? What about if you do the vibrational state with these people and show an indication of the problem? There are some books of ours that show you what to do. Read the projectology and you can overcome all this. You are in a very good growth crisis. You will grow a lot. In the first phase, pathology, could you talk about the act of loosening the structure of one known ego? Well, when a person diminishes the ego, you have a micro-ego, you start watching the humankind in a very large scale. That's how you
É correto afirmar que toda ideia nova já está disponível.
Is it correct to say that every new idea is available in the mental somatic dimension, and when we access, it changes our pattern of thoughts to a new condition?
Você lembra?
Well, you know me for a long time. Do you remember what I used to say? That from all sciences, they have discovered only one important thing, the neologistics.
O que pode significar quando saímos da TENEPS numa condição pior do que quando entramos? Significa que você não estava na TENEPS, você estava no assédio.
Worse than we entered. It means that you had no pentaprat. You were in an intrusion condition.
Devemos mencionar as consequências kármicas, when we do assistance, a pessoa estará sujeita a seguir tal caminho ou isso é para apelar para a emoção.
Problems a person is supposed to face, or is just appealing to emotion? Well, you need to clarify, you need to explain the person's way, but karmic consequences you should only talk about when the person has capacity to understand. This is all part of clarification test. Check if the person has ability or capacity to understand. I have just started studying Conscienciology. How can I deal with Jesus Christ's subject? Who was he as a consciousness? Does he act as a terrestrial helper? Well, I don't know how he is now, but the only thing I know is that he has been a Jewish woman in another life. I would like to remind you that there is this person who is going on birthday today. It's Eliel Queiroz. A round of applause to him. He's working in that studio. Today he's about 20, right?
20 anos de trabalho aí.
20 years of work.
Agora a gente aqui, ó, me mandaram também aqui.
People have sent me here also.
Olha só.
Just check it out.
Mandou negócio
Somebody has
a
sent
sua
me
verdadeira gatinha,
your true
que é a Cacá, quer dizer, a Cristo,
cat
está ouvindo a sua voz aqui
is
no
hearing
computador,
your
e por
voice
isso
in the
saiu do
computer
sofá e veio fazer
and has
carinho
left
no notebook,
the
miar e
sofa
amassar
and came
na
to
tela.
caress my notebook screen.
Ela sabe discernir
It knows how to
mas
discern
sinto informar que ela
for
não
sure,
desatou o nó das bolinhas
but
de pelo branco.
I am sure it hasn't
Quer dizer, a gatinha
untied
escuta
her own fur balls.
Escuta a voz e vai lá.
You know that the cats and the dogs are just like this. They hear your voice and they just follow that song. I knew the cat was in my office, but she left my office and went to Graça's office. And it always does this.
É terrível. Ouviu qualquer
It's terrific. Whatever she hears, she goes after.
Professor,
Professor,
qual foi o primeiro
what was the
discernimento
first
do senhor?
discernment of
Quando
yours?
foi?
When
Meu
was
primeiro
it?
discernimento?
My first discernment?
Eu vou te contar.
I will tell you.
Foi anteontem.
It was before yesterday. The first discernment we never forget.
Na exemplologia aqui,
I can see in
não é uma coisa
exemplology.
Foi anteontem. Faz uns 10 dias. Foi quando eu
It's not
escrevi
something
isso aqui.
possible.
Então eu tenho que falar.
Well, it was when I first wrote this entry. I would be lying, but it must have been a month ago when I wrote this subject.
eu imaginei outra coisa.
I imagined something else. I thought you would say when you were 2 years old. Well, I am working on my second discernment. It's not easy, but I'm not going to talk about this to you. I'm going to ask you, what was your first discernment? Because I know you for a long time, and I know you control your first discernment for a long time. And what is the second one? Yeah, Professor, what is the second one?
Esse golpe que eu dei chama-se contra-pergunta.
What I just did is the counter-question.
O golpe da contra-pergunta. Passei a bola para ele.
I passed the question to
Às
him.
vezes é necessário. Né?
Sometimes
Tendo
we need to do
problema
this.
desse, é óbvio.
Regarding a
Agora, pelo menos eu falei a
problem like
verdade. Já faz
this,
mais de mês.
at least I told the truth.
Não faz? Eu
It's
sei que
been
sabe.
over a
Faz
month
muito mais de mês.
when I wrote this subject, about this subject.
Agora, ó, com o tempo, a gente
With
pode
time,
enriquecer
we
esse
can
desejo,
enrich
colocar
this
outras
entry.
coisas nele.
We can add some other
aditivos,
things,
etc.
qualifiers,
Gasolina azul, opção de coisa.
fuel. You can
Para clarear
add
mais
some
ainda.
fuel to clarify. Waldo, letter A.
Queria saber qual foi o seu
I would
primeiro
like to know
discernimento.
what was
Pois é,
your first discernment.
Pois é. O meu
This is
primeiro
the counter
discernimento parece
answer.
que foi na época que eu era
It seems
protozoário.
that it was when I was
Então, para
protozoary, a
escapar de
bacteria.
vocês que eram
Bacteria.
protozoários, estavam me perseguindo. Então eu escapei pela
You
esquerda.
were chasing me,
Lá de cá.
and I just found
pelo
out
jeito,
this
o primeiro
discernment.
experimento que eu entendi até
By
agora,
what
então, quando a pessoa
I
começa a fazer realmente
understood,
assistência TARES, né? Que ela
The
dá
first
aquela guinada,
discernment
e ela
comes
esquece
only when
dela.
you start
Entendeu
doing
agora?
the
Entendi.
clarification
Então tá
test,
ótimo.
right?
Agora,
É isso que eu queria.
And you have the turning point. You got it, right?
assim,
That's
agora,
what I
assim,
wanted.
não tem, claro que não tem um limite de
Of
idade.
course, there
depende
is
de cada
no limit
consciência,
of age. It
do patamar
depends on
evolutivo
each
dela.
Agora, ó,
consciousness. I'm speaking very slowly today to see if people understand me. Enumerator, the helper, told me, speak very slowly today, because otherwise nobody will reach the depth you are trying to clarify. You could see that I used to that I started speaking very slowly. But I think it was not because of you here. You are high level. It was due to the extra physical consciousness.
Viu, professor? É porque o senhor comentou.
He asked me to talk about this very slowly.
Sobre a Malo, né? Depois que
He
ela
talked
fez
about
o
Malo.
livro dela,
After she wrote her books and she had the first discernment. So I think I'm not even close to that.
Aí que eu vi que o negócio é bem mais
complexo. That's when I saw it was very complex. Yeah, I'm waiting for you. Where is your book?
Vamos aí, estou aguardando.
I'm waiting for your book.
Aqui, ó.
I've got my eyes on you.
Ó.
With my glasses to read.
Mas é isso, minha gente. Ajudar os outros nem sempre.
To help other people, it's not easy.
E o maior obstáculo
é o
assistente.
Clog is the assistant itself. The greatest obstacle of interconsciential. Assistance is the assistant.
É sempre o assistente.
Na antagonismologia, o senhor explica aí o que é o nó e o que é os nós. Aí esse nó, na hora que eu vi inicialmente, eu pensei que fosse mais uma interpretação. Do jeito que o senhor está colocando aqui, para a gente deixar o ego resolver bem todos os
solve all the problems.
O egão é um nó de tal maneira que ele mexe no umbilical chakra.
In some way that it deals with your umbilical chakra. That's why many people have blocked umbilical chakra.
Pois é, mas é, né? O problema maior sempre é egóico.
The biggest problem is always with the ego.
Agora veja.
É isso mesmo, então.
Porque
você vai falar com a pessoa que ainda não entende
when you talk to someone that doesn't understand
nós, quer dizer que todas as pessoas são nós.
Well, when you talk about us, it means that all those people are not themselves. That's what they think. There are people that say, yeah, deal with people is very difficult. And those professions who have more problems are those when they deal with lots of people. But up to a certain point, this not is really happens.
Esse antagonismo é para
outra coisa, eu falei autoevolução.
I said self-evolution.
Esse antagonismo é paradoxal, né?
Self-evolution.
Não, é para a pessoa pensar
a paradoxal antagonism, right? Yes, it's for you to think about everything.
Tem coisa séria.
There are some jokes here, serious things.
O ideal seria que a gente sempre fizesse isso, mas nem sempre é possível.
It would be great if we did this all the time, but sometimes you need to say some bad words and you can't write the bad words here.
Quando o senhor falou que a gente vai entender,
when we said we'll understand this entry and will diminish a lot our self-conflict, it means that when you understand that all the people, all of us are problems of ourselves. Wait, listen, have you seen in Portugal that place near IAC where there is like a knot? After you, us. Do you remember? There is a very huge place surrounded by those knots.
É isso aí também, até um certo ponto o processo é esse. Foi assim que eles liberaram o processo de Portugal, a política de Portugal.
That's when they released the politics in Portugal.
Professor, aqui em cima do D, a sua esquerda, professor, aqui em cima, no D. Professor, o professor tem algum exemplo de como sim, que você considera terem chego a esse primeiro
discernment? Yes, a lot of them. For example, my helpers, the evolutionists, the intrusion-free beings, Sereníssimos, all of them have the first
Agora eu entendi bem.
Well, now I understood.
Então, por exemplo, se a gente pegar mesmo algumas consciências que foram completistas, vamos dizer, na TACOM, como o caso de Chico Xavier, esse pessoal todo, eles ainda não chegaram.
O Chico constellation tests. No, forget them. Chico Xavier never told the truth. He never had taught anything in class. He never talked about serious things. He was only trying to find somebody else's help. And that's why he wanted to create that aura of ascent.
Pegar pela escala evolutiva ali, a proximidade com a dispersidade está relacionada à pessoa chegar também a esse primeiro discernimento?
Do you think it's related to the first discernment?
Uma pessoa que começa a
When you start understanding this is when you have the extraphysical clinic. You can't maintain an extraphysical clinic without this. Because this clinic is like a luxury, evolutionary luxury. Is an intraphysical consciousness that has a settled extraphysical process. So it's very difficult. The extraphysical clinic.
The
mini cog is the beginning of the start. First to have a small talk.
A minha dúvida em relação à
but OFX demands more. My doubt is regarding intrusion free. Does it come before or after the first discernment? Well, you asked yourself about that. Adriana, people may have everything just as an appearance. I can say, I am Sereníssimos. There was this person that came to me and said, my uncle is Sereníssimos. And I went to his house, he was drinking beer. It's a little bit difficult for him to be Sereníssimos, right? There is this exception. So people make to be, but there is no reality. Waldo, letter A.
Agora de verdade.
That's for sure.
Por que é o efeito anticulpa da atitude retocável?
Na efeitologia, anti-guilt,
última linha do detalhismo ali na primeira página.
O efeito anticulpa da atitude irretocável.
Of the flawless attitude.
O problema é o seguinte: quando você toma uma atitude, uma postura, você se manifesta de uma maneira inteiramente cosmoética.
Do you manifest yourself in a completely cosmoetic
nenhuma culpa com isso.
Way? Do you have any guilt?
Nunca vai te dar
you won't have guilt.
Você não está entendendo o quê?
Don't you understand?
Eu acho que I
don't know what you don't see.
Dormir tranquilo.
I think it's the anti-prefix before the guilt.
A atitude irretocável
apparently the flawless attitude generates guilt. No, you're not understanding. Tell her.
Peraí, com uma voz mais
wait. A stronger voice is going to raise here.
Irretocável do ponto de vista moral.
Flawless in terms of moral
quando a pessoa foi totalmente de acordo com a moral, no nosso caso, com a cosmoética.
When you are in accordance with cosmoetics, with cosmo-moral,
se ela foi de acordo com a moral, ela não tem sentimento de
you are in accordance with moral, you have no guilt, no shame.
Então,
no
quando
remorse.
A pessoa age de acordo com o que ela considera
in
como
accordance
correto,
with what you think is correct,
não surge
cosmoetics,
sentimento
there
moral,
are no such
no caso seria
feelings.
Então, ela não se
in this case,
culpada,
guilt. So you don't feel guilty. So this flawless attitude could seem otherwise to other people. No. It's flawless. That's all. There are no adjustments. You don't need to fix. It's perfect in that evolutionary moment, and that's all. It's flawless condition.
Está vendo? Ser judia não é fácil.
To be a Jewish is very difficult, you know. We take a long time to understand something. Many years, many thousands of years. The flawlessness. Think about this. This seems to be your difficulty.
Agora você falou desse consciência também. O que seria o principal que nós teríamos que pegar de ideia para entender essa primeira discernimento? O que era mais que você viu nesse grupo? Seria o mais importante desse grupo de consciência que você observou.
In this group, you have observed the enumerator told you was present here. Well, let's say the subtlety of this process we are saying here with simple words demands a slow speech. You saw that I saw many aspects and I repeated some things. I've read what is written about the principle. The entry was made thin on purpose for you to understand the basic words. And you need to understand the following. Not all extra-physical consciousness understand our Portuguese correctly the way we are saying. They don't have the same capacity to listen this word I am saying now. So he asked me, speak slowly and you will help more people today. This entry demands this attitude. Everything is paradox here today. First, the entry has only 3 pages. It's Sunday, there are more people here. It's very interesting.
Mas, Waldo, qual ponto que você acha que seria o mais importante para essas consciências? Ela vai ressomar, ela tem que entender.
They must understand. They are talking about intermissivists.
Entender isso.
And they should understand this. This is the most serious
anticonflituosidade subject. Seria essa questão que você
primeiro é entender o que a gente está falando, o que vocês estão falando.
Condition you saying?
Primeiro é isso. Mas é entender
First, they need to understand what we and you are saying.
Eu quero comparar, entender
the meaning
seria
of what you're saying
mais
here.
Importante para consciência.
Yeah, but what would be more important for the conscious and the conscient?
Tanto para consciência como para
whichever, be conscient or conscious, everybody has difficulty to understand this. And people's tendency is to say that this is very simple, and they have understood nothing.
Assim, então escreva sobre
okay, and you tell the person, so write about this. You know I did this to some people, and they don't understand at all.
Por isso você falou, não.
They don't figure it out. So they told me, speak slowly.
Alguém aí deve ter olhado, deve ser igual aquela mulher, quando nós estávamos lá na outra sala, que uma vez falou, não, você ontem estava muito nostálgico.
I have nostalgia
assim,
today.
Vai daí. Eu falei mais devagar, com calma, você expôs igual hoje. Hoje deve ter gente aí então que vai sair para
today,
o Waldo está muito
some people will leave the Tertuliarium and say, Waldo has nostalgia today.
Estou concentrado, minha filha.
I am concentrated.
3 verbetes lá na minha fuça.
I have 3 entries.
Na testa. Então, eu preciso trabalhar, né, para aquilo. Como é que faz? E hoje eu não trabalhei no escritório.
And today
Sabe como é que é? Eu trabalhei.
I haven't worked in my office. I worked in the morning.
Embaixo, depois subi.
I worked with the first, and then
eu não trabalhei no escritório.
I went down to holocycle and up there because.
Por isso que a gatinha foi para lá e por isso que ela está atrás.
Because my brother-in-law was there sleeping, so I couldn't.
A rotina dela.
And also my little cat, because she requires more routine than myself. That's why Graça saw that. And she was a bit scared, otherwise she wouldn't have written what she wrote.
pesca tudo.
And it's just like that, it grabs everything, it's just like a bodyguard or someone who really helps you. It's very interesting, the attachment that is there. It's just Lawrence, what Lawrence wrote about, that's the imprinting process. So let's go to our commercial break. There have been 123 signatures, 20 presential questions, 21 answered online, 17 online votes, and 17 presential ones. Today we're going to have some messages.
E antes, junto com a Hernani, que está representando o Epígrafe, que todos os meses está doando um livro para ser sorteado entre os amigos da enciclopédia.
Okay, so let's go with our messages. First of all, so now we're going to raffle the book Rumo ao Infinito. The author who was here yesterday, we held a talk show in the library. It was very interesting. He talks about astronomy, space shuttles. It's a very interesting book on scientific vulgarization. And we have here the numbers of the friends of Encyclopedia, and we're going to see the names.
Número 39.
So number 39, and the winner is
Asimvex.
Asimvexis.
É amigo que é o grupo. Então a gente vai passar para o
It's a friend who's a group. So we're going to give this book to Asimvexis, and it will be up to you to decide what's going to be done with the book. Okay, good afternoon, folks. I would like to reinforce the invitation to the Penta practitioners to the 6th Forum of Penta and the 3rd Forum that takes place at the end of the year here in Foz do Iguaçu with your works and experiences. So, the term for the works is up to June 30 within a month, and the works can be directed to the following e-mail.
Mais informações do evento vocês conseguem também através desse e-mail. Obrigado.
At gmail.com.
Então, é só para reiterar.
Thank you very much. Okay, just to reiterate, as we have said,
não vai ter sessão pipoca, tá?
Today there will
espero voltar semana que vem. A gente está no processo
the popcorn session because we're in the process of troubleshooting. Okay, so when we resume, we'll let you know. Good afternoon, I'm talking here on behalf of Conscious, so the volunteer guinea pig that will take place here in CAEC in Foz do Iguaçu.
É fim de semana
e
vai realizar 10 consciências cobaias, mas são 30 vagas. E aqui eu estou com o Igor, que já foi consciência cobaia algumas vezes, para dizer um pouco da experiência dele
no consciência cobaia. Bom,
pessoal, já tive a oportunidade de ficar 2 anos
okay,
na
folks, I had the
Conscious,
opportunity to be 2 years in Conscious,
eu
studying conscienciometry, and I endorse what João Paulo has just said. I think it's one of the things that really propel yourself to see your evolutionary gaps, to see your mistakes, to see your flaws, and to fill in the gaps. So I think that the result of the guinea pig, conscienciometry guinea pig, is very important to have the person write his personal cosmoethical code, and
mais trafarística, as oportunidades que ela acaba perdendo, para fazer com que ela não passe por isso depois. Então eu acho que é um dos maiores instrumentos que a gente tem hoje aqui na Cognópolis para alavancar o processo evolutivo da consciência.
Então, só lembrando, os dias 2, 3 e 4 de julho, mês 7, as inscrições estão no CAEC, o convite é feito para os tertulianos, os teletertulianos, e aguardamos a todos. Obrigado, boa tarde.
Bom, pessoal, estamos aqui para lembrar a todos da pesquisa online sobre PENEPS. A gente está reforçando agora a divulgação. Estamos construindo um material que vai ser divulgado em todas as I6. Já tivemos aprovação na Unicim e também no Conselho das I6. Então, fazemos uma convocação geral a todos os penepsistas que acessem o site do CAEC, na página principal, ao centro, embaixo, escolha o idioma, leia as instruções atentamente, faça o download desse formulário, imprima ele no papel, faça sua autopesquisa, autotenepsologia, responda com calma e depois volte ao site para colocar lá as suas respostas. Nós vamos continuar com essa pesquisa ainda por um bom tempo, mas é interessante que as pessoas comecem já a fazer essa autopesquisa. Algumas perguntas, elas provocam realmente uma necessidade que a pessoa vá consultar os seus registros de TENEPS, fazer o seu inventário para responder, o que é muito positivo. Nós agradecemos de modo antecipado todos aqueles que vão participar dessa pesquisa. Obrigado.
Pessoal, boa tarde. Então, eu estou aqui em nome do CAEC para lembrar a todos sobre os cursos de inverno que vão ocorrer em julho, aqui em Foz do Iguaçu. Em especial, eu gostaria de divulgar dois cursos. O primeiro deles seria o curso Mega Fenomenologia na Desperticidade. Esse curso será realizado aqui no Tertuliário com o professor Waldo Vieira. Quem tiver interesse em saber mais, o verbete Mega Fenomenologia na Desperticidade, ele encontra-se disponível no site das Tertúlias. O segundo evento será a terceira jornada da Parapercepciologia, que ocorre do dia 16 a 18 de julho. Esse curso será realizado em 3 dias e reúne vários pesquisadores. Serão realizadas 6 conferências, 7 apresentações em mesas de debates, 17 pesquisas inéditas publicadas na revista Consciência e o debate sobre cientificidade e parapsíquica. Quem tiver interesse, basta acessar o site do CAEC e toda a programação do evento encontra-se disponível. Só lembrando que os descontos promocionais eles irão até o dia 15 de junho. Então todos estão convidados. Obrigado.
O verbete eleito para amanhã é preço do ideal, especialidade holomaturologia. Obrigada e boa tarde a todos.